Well, we have this morning to discuss how it is that we can actually improve security and what steps have been taken so far. What is working, what isn't? We have with us Mr. Mike Ejiofor, who is a former director with the Department of State Services. You're welcome to Sunrise City this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is where we are now. It does appear that there is some progress. The military has been talking about how they're making progress. If you also ask, other arms of other apparatus of security, they will also say that there seems to be some progress. But the concerns remain. And in many instances, progress is not new. What is worrisome for us has been sustaining the progress that we have made, making sure that we do not retrogress, so to speak. So for you, where would you say that we have, the areas of strength that we have, and where would you say we need to strengthen?
Well, I think I'm an optimist. I believe very strongly in Nigeria. And when the minister, based on the president directive, is saying we'll have a timeline by the end of the year, all this is a cheering news. But I don't see how that will be achieved immediately, because this war has been on for a very long time, if you recall, and we've been trying to overcome it. Granted, conceding too that we've made substantial progress. If you look at when we started, you were seeing bombs going up in Abuja, going up in UN House. You remember Madala case, and all these ones are no more. They were virtually restricted to the Northeast. Then when the war on the Northeast also was being won, these people scattered again and went to Central and Northwest. So that's what we are contending with this new group of Lokarawa and all these things. But I believe that with the new men in helm of affairs, like the Chief of Defense Staff, the NSA, the DGSS, the Chief of Army Staff, the IG Police, all of them working together, I consider synergy. So I think that's why we are perhaps achieving the results we're getting. But beyond that, I think we should get people more involved. Citizen participation, a whole society concept. We should not leave it just to the military to begin to fight, because this is beyond kinetic approach. Government should go beyond the kinetic approach and employ a non-kinetic approach, like facilitating job opportunities, reintegrating people who have been de-radicalized, get some people, look at those areas of discontent, within the society, and try to address them. So those are the issues. So on citizen participation, and I also believe that I'm the president of the Alumni Association of National Institute for Security Studies, which of course, is made up of both serving and retired officers, both retired and some management level. So as part of our contribution, we're also trying to see what we can do to support government by getting a seminar, a maiden lecture, where major stakeholders will be involved, to get them and say, look, what is the way forward? It is curbing insecurity in Nigeria, a practical approach. And we'll have major stakeholders. The NSA is going to be there as the special guest of honor. We'll have the Chief of Defense Staff as the chairman of the occasion, and the Inspector General of Police. The chief host is the DGSSS. And you can see that we've carefully selected the stakeholders. We will have people, civil society organizations, security practitioners. Let us sit down and see how do we bring out solutions to our problems, because it's been festering and it needs to be addressed.
Well, we have been having all these ideas around solutions. The question is, what has been, stopping us from implementing the ideas that we have had? Why do you think that previous ideas we have had, because I'm sure there have been many conferences on security. What exactly is the barrier from, the ideas and the resolutions that come out of this to implementation?
Yeah, talking honestly, we are not lacking in the solutions to our problems. We are not. So several seminars have been held. You've seen a lot of white papers not being implemented. I'll give you, for instance, the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies.
NIPS.
NIPS. Every year during the course, topics, security-related topics, and they present this paper to government. The same thing with the Defense College. The same thing with the National Institute for Security Studies. What is government actually doing? So we've been working on theories. So that's why we've come with, I would say, a practical approach. Get everybody together to see how do we practicalize all these theories that have been on paper. So those are, we are going to, is a one-day program that everybody will be there to see how we move this country forward.
Well, I'm a little curious as to, we've talked about how, it's a good thing you're talking about the whole of society approach now, but we know that our first line of defense is the police in any single situation. It's supposed to be the police. Clearly, in many communities, we've talked about how we have so many ungoverned spaces. This particular issue we're facing now with Lakurawa, if you look at the history, we understand that, the people themselves invited these people in because they thought that they could help protect them against people that were giving them problems at the time, only for them to now turn around. Exactly, to become the problems themselves. So if the police, for instance, if the state, through its awareness and through its own presence of the police force were in that community, first there would have been no need for them to look outside. So how do you think that we've paid sufficient attention to our policing system, or are we still paying lip service to it?
Well, I'll answer both in the negative and the affirmative. We've not paid sufficient attention to the police. Police is ill-equipped, underfunded, and under such circumstances, there's no way you can expect maximum performance from them. But again, if you look at this year's budget, that's why we're also talking about practical approaches. If you look at this year's budget, this is the highest so far. That shows government commitment, to fighting insecurity. Beyond funding, because we should also not be talking about funding. I was watching a clip this morning, though I had watched it before, when Adams Oshomole in the Senate
talked about
priorities. When the military will go and establish a university that's nothing related to warfare, just like, according to him, he said glorified university, instead of equipping the defense academy. Now, how was that bill treated at the National Assembly? The Senate president asked questions 3 times with a view. He himself got confused that should we allow this type of thing to go? And the names had it. It's very embarrassing for a country that is virtually at war. So we're looking at practical approaches because the same people will come back to seek our vote. We want to educate people, but because people are hungry, they don't know their rights. So we need to begin to educate them now on the practical approach that you are mortgaging your future, you are mortgaging your conscience and the future of your children. Vote for the right persons to come in, and they will be accountable to you. So on the issue of budget, like I said, it's not sufficient for us to budget trillions of naira on budget and defense, on defense and security. without monitoring how is this money spent. And the National Assembly too must play its own oversight function. Oversight does not mean that you get your own share of the money, but ensure that equipment are bought, that these things are properly monitored, and the sufficient money is released, because it's not sufficient to budget. You budget without release, or you release 10-20% performance. We are running three budgets now, 2023, 24, 25. And it's not done anywhere. So there has to be this oversight function. In addition to that, you recall that the 36 state governors bought into this issue of the state police.
I was just about to raise that. I just noted that down now. Because when you talked about the police not being well funded, part of the challenges that people have also raised is the over-centralization of the police. And how, even if it's well funded, even if all the money were pumped into one central police, there is no way it can be effective in reaching all nooks and crannies of this country. So this conversation on state police, which we seem to have in starts and stops. 1 minute it seems there's a lot of fire, it's about to happen. Next minute, all goes very quiet. No one hears anything again. Where precisely are we? Why is it so difficult for us to take a decision?
You see, I was very excited when I heard that the 36 state governors had bought into this idea. It's not every state that can afford state police. But the ones that can afford it can start by establishing the state police after amending the laws, establishing the state police. Because no matter the criticism people have about the state police, the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages. Because the people are going to be drawn from the communities. The people are even known in the communities. They know the criminal elements. They are not going to leave the Nigerian police alone. They are going to work in concert with the Nigerian police. And I think that's one of the major highlights we should be emphasizing, that establishment of state police. Because, one, these problems are local. We must get local solutions. If you look at Borno, for instance, you have the issue of Boko Haram. In the southeast, you have agitation, Biafra. You have in the northwest, banditry, north central, banditry, and all the rest of them. You cannot use a one-fit solution for all the problems. It's not going to work. So you localize the problems and localize the solutions. And that's the way to go. So when we talk of practicalizing these things, we want to make sure not coming out at the end of the day that we have a paper or a position paper. We must also try to follow it up government. Luckily, we have people in government and we have people who are retired. So these are measures we tend to look at, and we appeal that people, major stakeholders, should come out and let us see how this country will move forward.
Well, let us hope that, that will happen. But in the meantime, the economy, some people will say, what has the economy got to do with security? But we also know that when people are hungry, their propensity to, resort to crime or to things that will give them fast rewards, quick rewards, the incentive is very high. How would you say that we are making sure that the environment is inconducive to those who, decide that this is what they want to do? How are we making sure that people who really want to be gainfully employed, are seeing opportunities to do so? Are you satisfied with that area of our trying to, combat insecurity?
If you remember, when we started, we'll be concentrating our efforts on kinetic approach, thinking that buying of guns, buying of armament and everything will win this one. It's good, but it's not going to win the war. We need a combination of kinetic and non-kinetic. Like you said, the economy is bad. People are hungry, and we have different groups of criminal elements. We have people who are destined professional criminals, there's nothing you will do that would not make them go into crime. Mm-hmm. They have opportunities criminals who people think, well, I have nothing to eat today. Then you go to steal to eat. Such ones, you can be controlled as at best, controlled. But these people who are hardened criminals, who live by crime, like all these fraudsters, 419, which is also another major challenge we're facing in this country. You see, people don't want to work, they want to make money, and all this. So it's a major problem. It's a big scourge now that young people, you see them everywhere trying to make huge money, buy cars and all this, without justifying what they are doing. So it's a major problem.
Would you say that, I think the question for me is whether you think that government is doing enough in that regard, whether they are, working harder, the policies that they are coming up with, trying to implement with regards to creating jobs. Now, I think there's even the education policy of, making sure that people have skills and things of the sort. Are you seeing sufficient aggression in that regard to, get people off the streets, get people busy, get people economically engaged?
For now, we're not seeing the results. The policies are being rolled out. Until they start implementation, they will begin to see the result. But these are good intentions if they are followed through. And but the greatest problem we have, one of the greatest challenges, if we overcome this terrorism and other allied crimes, is going to be the problem of the youths. And when they get involved in politics, it becomes more dangerous because they have cash to spend. And nobody, because of the moral decadence.
The youths have cash?
Most of them who are now into all these...
crime.
Crime.
Oh, yes.
419, they have so much cash. They buy cars, they display cars, they throw money. And when they get involved in politics, they are the same people who are going to occupy positions of authority. If you recall that in 1999, unfortunately, most of the people who occupied were fraudsters. People who made money through internet fraud and became traditional rulers, became National Assembly members, governors, and what have you. I pray we don't go back to that era because that's what we are heading to now. But at times I sit down and ask myself some questions. All these people being duped, what is their intention? How do they easily fall into this type of trap? It's a big problem. But if the youths now begin to get into that level of leadership, then we'll be in a more serious problem.
Some people say, are you blaming the victims? When you say, how do they get duped?
Yes, I do blame the victims because they're also greedy.
But in some instances, they are just, in some instances where maybe lines are stolen, people are just not as observant. These fraudsters these days, they are very, very smart with how they carry out their activities. I mean, if you were to look at the one who was caught in Dubai, who happened to be a Nigerian and he's now facing time in Hush Puppy, who was caught in Dubai. It is, all he was doing was changing IPs, very slight changes, and people who were not observant, became victims. But, I mean, I don't know what the fraction of that will be.
If somebody calls you now, that is one that amuses me so much. Somebody calls you, have a Zoom meeting, and you send a code. You don't know the person tell you, I belong to this group. You should just discuss such a cause and don't get involved. And that's how they have people's phone numbers and they collect their money. It's funny.
Well, I know that Ayo also has a few questions for you. Ayo.
Well, thank you, Malcolm. Let me see, Joffo, we've talked about this issue quite a number of times. And one of the things that it always comes to for me, is the people. Yes, I mean, Malcolm has already taken one right out of my mouth. It will seem like we're blaming the people. But, I mean, one of the issues we started the program with this morning is that of people scooping fuel. Now, we also know, I mean, you are not unaware, that at the time when the Boko Haram menace was so serious, there were reports that a good number of times it's because people just want to feed for each day. That is why they allow themselves to be lured into these situations and circumstances. Do you think there's enough social barricades or social provisions from government, federal, state, or local, to ward off or to stave off some of these causes of insecurity?
Well, I don't think so. If there were sufficient safety nets, I don't think when you see a situation today, people who went to school fuel got burned. Tomorrow, the same set of people, another set of people will still go. So that shows the level of illiteracy and poverty in the society. So we need to, government doesn't need to even begin to address people. We need to talk to ourselves. And that's why we're talking of a whole society concept of the people. We need to be enlightened. We need to be conscious that there are dangers inherent in what all these people are doing. How can you continue? It's only a madman that will continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. How many times have we got our people burnt through this fuel scooping? And tomorrow it happens again. People will still go there. So it's illiteracy, and I don't think government has to do that. But because, the roads are equally bad, you continue to have accidents with vehicles. If the roads were that good, I don't think all these issues will be recurring every day.
Okay, but then, again, it will seem like that is a matter for government. And the people, sounds like you're saying, are at the mercy of government. If the government does not do what it should do on some of the issues that you have raised, this situation will continue?
Well, you see, they say a hungry man is an angry man. People are bound to take risks, even at the cost of their own life. So because there's so much poverty, there's hunger in the land, people want to survive by all means, not minding. Some of them will even tell you it's better they even die in the process than continue to live. So it's both the people and the government have roles to play.
Now, what we are talking about is to tackle the issue of tackling emerging security threats. Over time, what has happened is it will seem like the security challenges we have, they change their shape. They shape shift from time to time. I go back to one of the favorite conversations between you and I, that of intelligence. Some of the things happening today, a good number of people have said, oh, this is where it's likely to end up. We've had Laddie Thompson on our program a number of times, and he said, look, I've been talking about the same thing for about 15 years, and it will seem like no one is paying attention. So how come these things happen? These emerging threats, as we call them, they are emerging right there in our faces, and we just wait until they catch up on us. Or so it seems.
No. We're talking of emerging threats. You see, like fuel accident is not an emerging threat. But when you talk of like Ukarawa and all those groups, these people have been profiled even before they came to the foreknowledge of the people. They've already been profiled. The greatest problem we have is with the action agencies, for no fault of theirs. If you get intelligence and send to the action agency, and they don't have capacity or capability to deal with this, who do you blame? And that's why I said that government is also trying in its effort to eradicate these crimes by making more provisions. But like I said, there's a caveat. It's not just making budgetary provision, but it must be supervised and ensure that the money is used for what it is meant for. That is very key in our fight against this terrorism. And that's why we are calling up. I expect, except of course that you are in Lagos, we expect you to be at Yaradua Center on Thursday, at least, to be part of the process. Because you people who are the media are among the people that even shaping the society. So we need every hand to be on deck to come and see how we solve these our problems.
Well, I know that there will always be a lot for us to talk about in terms of security, and we certainly will. I don't know, can you just tell us this issue, this spate of kidnapping? I know that but almost every part of the country, has fears of kidnapping. It's something, is in the northeast, is in the northwest. No area is spared. Even Abuja here, people are afraid of that particular. Would you say that we've been able to crack it?
We've not been able to crack it because the more you fight it, the more people go into it because it has become a franchise. It's the easiest way to make money now. You can't go on robbery. How much cash are you going to? But when you get this, when you do kidnap and make more money, people are encouraged to go more into it. But the worrying aspect now is that they don't stop at extorting money, but they kill their victims. Mm-hmm. That is also very worrisome. And you don't blame the security agencies. Mm-hmm. You don't blame the family.
The security agencies. Why not the security agencies? Who do we then blame?
If you blame the security agencies, in the course of the process of trying to release that person and the person is killed, how do you explain it? And you cannot stop a family who is eager to ensure that their family member is rescued from doing what they are doing. So it's a major problem that needs some balancing, But I can tell you that more than 70% or 80% of these kidnaps, they are tracked and the victims are arrested. The ones that killed the honorable member in Onitsha, they've been arrested, But it's sad that people continue to lose their life in this process.
Well, we sincerely hope that we are able to surmount our challenges, and we certainly will be looking forward to your conference when it eventually comes up. We have to thank you so much for lending your voice to our conversation this morning. Mr. Mike Ejiofor is a former director with the Department of State Services. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.